So I've got to say, at the risk of aging myself, my dad showed me Fletch when I was a kid, and I loved it. The original Fletch it's still one of my favorite Chevy Chase movies. And
Yeah,
so
they're
I
great.
heard that Confess Fletch was in the works with John Hamm. My interest was piqued, but what about it really caught your attention to want to be a part of it?
I like the idea that they were going to go back and use the books as the template, really, to create this character, to sort of revisit Fletch. I thought John was a really interesting choice. He's got the kind of suave demeanor that I think the original Fletch had. Also, sort of the sense of bumbling, inept on the side that he could also play. Charm, of course. So I thought, oh yeah, that's a good choice. And then Greg Matola has been a friend for many, many years, and we've always like, oh, wouldn't it be great to work together on something? And he really just reached out and said, hey, I don't know if this is of your interest. You want to come for a couple of weeks, play this character? He's kind of fun. And I looked at it and said, that sounds, what the heck, why not? I'd never been to Boston in all my years, which is weird to say. And so I thought, all right, we'll go to Boston. We'll hang out with Greg, John, and see what's all about. And I liked the character too. I thought the character was, I liked all of the characters, but my character was great because he's a serious art dealer collector, with some very strange quirks. And I said, well, I can do that. And I think it makes them more interesting. So, and also challenging for me to present the guy as a somewhat eccentric, offbeat kind of dude, who then at the end of the day actually has to be a threat, and be legitimately dangerous, and so I said, okay, this will be fun. So all of those elements kind of combined, and I said, oh, this will be great.
So with that said, then when Greg pitched you the idea of the character in the film, did he tell you outright where the character was going to end up come the end of the film?
Oh yeah, so I read the script and I saw that this is where he had to go, and he was actually the going to be the villain of the piece. So I said, oh, okay. So I want to make sure that I present him in the beginning as not a suspect. I don't know if you felt that or not, but I really wanted him to be, oh, he's the last person that you would think of as a potential, bad guy, So that's a fun thing to be able to play. How you temper that as an actor,
Yeah, there were definitely a lot of great red herrings thrown out throughout the film to where I still always kept you in mind, but at the same time I was like, but this film seems just off enough that it might not be.
How could he pull it together? Yeah.
Exactly. And so one of the funny things about your character's little quirks is his music taste, and the dance sequences that you got to do with that. I mean, what was it like, exploring that specific element of him?
Well, it was interesting because initially it said EDM, and I didn't really I didn't know what that meant when I first started out. So I was like, okay. And then they said it's electronic dance music, and I said, oh, okay, great. I do love some of that. I like electronica a little bit. So I said, oh, good. So then Greg said, well, why don't you bring me some suggestions of music that you like? So I started listening to EDM, and I don't even remember the names of the bands, but I was all over the place. But I wanted something that was kind of I guess the rationale for it was, here's a guy who's very, very caught up in his head and plotting and planning this character, and the EDM is an opportunity for him to sort of forget about all that, basically just like play a video game, and it's his equivalent to a video game. So you just go mindless for a while and just do this crazy thing, and it's very good, and I think it's practical in his mind. It's very good exercise. So these two things went together, and it also sort of gives a kind of a European weird energy to the character. Like he spends time, somewhere in some small German community, dancing around with other strange people, all wearing, various different types of clothing. And I thought, oh, okay, this is all working out very well. But anyway, the research part of it was fun. And it was really more about finding where that quirk, that addition to the character, making it making it part of the character, not just something that you laid on. And it was like, oh, here's three weird things that this guy's going to do. They all had to make sense within the character. So we found a rationale for it.
Well, I had thought of it to those depths, so that's great that you did. It certainly makes sense for that
Good.
character. What was
Cool.
it like developing the rapport then with the rest of your cast for the film?
We had fun. We were in Boston. We were together. It was very low budget, very independent, and so we didn't even really have separate trailers or places to go when we'd finish a scene, just to go and kind of chill. There was one green room for everybody, so everybody kind of hung out together. We were in a beautiful location in on the coast in Boston, just outside of Boston, where they had all the boat stuff. We did a lot of stuff there, and then a few things in town. But it was really just kind of a big group hanging out, sitting around, drinking coffee, chitty chatting until we would do the next little setup. And Greg, very easygoing. Greg Matola, very easygoing, and he was a joy to work with. So we just, it just kind of happens naturally. You're also in a foreign place, so he's like, "Hey, you want to go to dinner tonight?" And so we'd go off somewhere together. We'd find a place to eat, someplace kind of fun. So it was a lot of that, a lot of camaraderie.
Well, that's always good to have on set. So that's great that you had that opportunity.
Yeah.
And so since you mentioned the boats, as someone who's enjoyed your work for quite a while, I mean, did you find any funny parallels between your character in this and the captain from How I Met Your Mother?
I the character of the Commodore, and I've forgotten the name of the actor who played it, who comes up with a drink in his hand, and he gets shot at the end. I don't want to give it away, but he gets shot at the end accidentally. He survives. It's kind of like this high. No, is it? And I said, "Oh, that's very close. That's very close to the captain." But it was kind of fun to revisit that, to be on the boat and have oh yeah, a little bit of a captain reference. I was trying to think of a way that I could lay in like a little Easter egg somewhere as the character, but nothing really occurred to me. So I was like, well, all right. But there is something that happens when you're on a boat and you play that particular kind of character. You almost become kind of like Cary Grant. You want to be like, "Hello, it's my boat here. Yes, take a look and see." So you sort of get into this odd, like upper crust kind of almost English sort of throwback East Coast guy, so that crept into the character for sure.
Well, I'm sure fans who of the show who haven't watched the movie yet will love putting those two together.
Yes, I hope so. That would be fun. He's a
um,
great character too.
yeah, absolutely. But and so with that said, then I mean, with a reboot with legacy sequels, you never know how they're going to perform. You always hope they do well, and it's been great to see the really positive response from critics to this film. How's it been for you seeing the very positive feedback for this?
Yeah. I think we were all sort of not sure what the response was going to be to this for a couple of reasons. One is, Chevy Chase, of course, originated the role, put a very strong mark on it. But I think we all felt like that was fine and that was his interpretation. But at the end of the day, didn't resemble the character that was created in the original books. I'm trying to remember the name of the author. Is it Greg MacDonald? Is it
Yes.
Greg? Yes. Okay. And he wrote a number of books, and the character that John, the way he played the character, much closer to I think what the author intended in the original book. So we thought, well, that's good. The people are a fan of the books, and there's a number of them. I think they'll be hopefully pleasantly surprised if that's the direction that we went. So that was good. And then just this kind of comedy, this is not a slapstick, sort of people falling down, crazy, over the top comedy. This is something that you have to sort of pay attention to, and you have really quirky characters, and you've got a wonderful cast of actors that create these characters. And there's some really funny moments, and John is kind of in the middle, kind of viewing all of this kind of stuff and kind of just going along as best he can and trying to figure this out. And, it asks for the audience to go on that journey with him. And it seems like a lot of people are doing that, which was pleasant. I mean, it was a wonderful surprise.
I couldn't agree with you more. I think I love that it had a different flavor from the Chevy Chase movies. As someone who has not read the books, I think that worked very well in Confess Fletch's favor. And I look forward to spreading the word about it. I want more people to see this film. I want more people to see you, and your twists and turns. So, Kyle, thank you so much for taking the time to chat. I greatly appreciate it.
It's a pleasure, Grant. A pleasure. Enjoy South Carolina.